What is good, Raider Nation? It's your boy Sanjeev back at it with another video. Uh, the Raiders have lost, and we are now 2-7. We have the number two overall pick at this point, man. We're gonna talk about this game. We're gonna talk about kind of what's going on with this Raiders roster. Wasn't that bad of a game? Let's just be honest. Defense played okay, right? Typical defense gives up anywhere from 20 to 25 points, right? Generally speaking, that's what the Raiders defense gives up. We're gonna talk about it, man. Offense scores 20 points. Derek Carr had a pretty good game. Josh Jacobs was okay, 3.7 yards per attempt. The Raiders just couldn't pull it out, man. We're gonna talk about it, man. We're gonna talk about it. A lot of penalties today, man. Um, you're not gonna win a lot of games with the amount of penalties the Raiders had today. I think they had 10. Let me just confirm that really quickly. So the Raiders had 10 total penalties for 74 yards. That's just too many penalties, man. It's interesting because the Raiders could have won this game. Like that final play right there, if Devontae Adams catches it, we win the game. Obviously, Stephon Gilmore. Remember, the Raiders, there was a potential that the Raiders could have signed Gilmore, and we ended up not signing him, and we ended up losing because of Gilmore. Plus, if the Raiders actually signed him, how much better would the defense be, right? Kind of interesting, right? Just something to kind of think about. A shout out to the over 250 of you guys that are already here. If you guys could hit that thumbs up button, it's always a huge, 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 huge help. I'm going to get into all of you guys' comments today, man. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what you guys think. We're going to talk about my opinions, right, which are going to be different than your guys' opinions. I know some of you guys will agree, some of you won't, which is all good. That's what it is, right? That's what it is. Let's get into this. Derek R said, let me collapse this a little bit. Derek R said, our defense sucks. No talent, Mad Max Webb, and a bunch of wet paper bags. Defensive talent is not very good. Max Crosby's probably the best player on this team. Maybe not the best on the team, but he's definitely one of the best. Obviously, the best defensive player we have. Big shout out to Sam Webb, man. The guy made plays today. The Raiders, in my opinion, had a couple of plays that really were the difference in this game. And one play was the Sam Webb forced fumble. The Raiders just had to pick the ball up. Someone just fall on it. And if the Raiders got possession at that point, the Raiders probably win this game because literally on the next play, after that Sam Webb punched the ball out of, I believe it was Michael Pittman. It may have been someone else. He punches the ball out. On the very next play, Pierce Campbell takes it for a 40-yard touchdown, whatever it was. The big shout out to Sam Webb for that play, man. Definitely a nice play, if you guys ask me. A lot of people are talking about that play specifically. I saw it a lot on social media. That could have been the difference in this game. Obviously, the Raiders ended up losing. It is what it is. Mike says 20 fucking points. Guess this was on JMD again. Carr sucks, period. Time to sit his ass. Pathetic. It sucks because the Raiders are 2-7 and we're gonna win football games, right? Like this Colts game was just one play here, one play there, and the Raiders could have won versus losing. The Raiders are gonna win like 4 or 5 games, right? Like let's just be honest. We're 2-7. That I think that means there's 8 games left. Don't quote me, but out of those 8 games, we're gonna win 3 of those games, and we're not gonna have the number 2 overall pick. Like very low chance we're gonna not win any games the rest of the season. Now, if it was up to me, right, I would have said let's just go all in, let's try winning, but it doesn't look like that's what the Raiders are gonna try to do. And of course, having a top 5 pick, even if it's the number 2 pick, right? If you're going to go quarterback number 2, that's the way you want to go. But if you're going to go a defensive talent, top 5 pick, and you get one of the best defensive players coming out, you can take Will Anderson, who's really solid. You can take Jalen Carter from Georgia, best defensive tackle prospect in a long time. Probably be a top 5 pick. Those two players changed this defense. The Raiders got to fix the defense. Let's just be honest. The offense, yeah, it has its own issues, but the defense has just been bad for too long. We just don't have the players right now, right? Suan said all Cole Sr. is good for is big drops. That's fact. The guy's terrible, man. I don't know. it's crazy because when we brought in him, we brought in Hollins, we had Demarcus Robinson that we brought in. We brought these three guys in, and I thought Keelan Cole had a lot of upside. I thought this guy may be a solid player for the Raiders. The guy has so many freaking drops. Today, I'm pretty sure he had for sure two that I can think of on my head. One on that final drive. One, I think it was in the first or second drive. He dropped that one too. I'm sure he had another one somewhere. May have been someone else, but Keelan Cole is terrible. Absolute terrible. RAR Flex, shout out to you, Raider Flex, I should say, says our offense has been playing like shit this year. Our defense has been playing like shit for the last 20 years. Fact. 100% fact. It's time to fix the defense. Um, you know, um, there's two ways to fix the defense, right? First and foremost, you can spend money on the defense via free agency, or you can draft players through free agency. But both of those things are going to require capital, right? You got to spend the money on the defensive side, and I think the Raiders have been for a long time not spending that money. So I think it's time that the Raiders do that. Got to spend money on the defense. How much better would this defense be? All right, let's say the Raiders did not go out and get Devontae Adams. And you guys tell me, would we be a better team? Let's say we don't get Devontae Adams. Instead, we use that first and second round pick. Plus, let's say we spent what, I guess technically we wouldn't have even had to pay. But let's say we went out and got Roquan Smith. Let's say we got Bradley Chubb. And I know we wouldn't have got Bradley Chubb because it's within division. Maybe it's DeForest Buckner, right? But let's say you get DeForest Buckner, you get Roquan Smith. And let's say you picked up Stephon Gilmore through free agency. And we don't get Devontae Adams. Would we be a better team or a worse team? I think we'd be a better team because we'd have three playmakers on the defensive side, but yet the Raiders don't invest on the defense, or we're going to continuously suck. It's unfortunate because I don't know if Mark Davis only wants to sell tickets, and that's why he wants to go all in on this high-powered offense. But the thing is this offense just isn't very good. 20 points isn't that good, right? Especially with our team. We all know our defense is not going to hold a team to less than 20 points. That's super unrealistic. Enzo the Go said, when the play breaks down, Carr has to be able to get positive yards, and it really happened. Supported him 100% his entire career with the Raiders, but it's seriously time for a change. I do think Derek Carr had some really good plays today, right? I've said this on Twitter, and I've said it in past videos, but I know not everyone tunes into every single one of my videos. If Derek Carr has a shit game, we'll call him out. But today, his game was not that bad. The Devontae Adams touchdown, the long one, was an absolute beautiful. I guess he only had one touchdown, but the 40-yard touchdown that Devontae Adams had, the O-line did a great job picking up the defensive line game. It was Dylan Parham, Andre James, Alex Bars. They passed it off. Dylan Parham pancaked the guy. Derek Carr climbed the pocket, kept his eyes downfield, and he could have ran for the first. It was third down. He could have ran for the first. Instead, he throws it to Devontae Adams, and it was a really nice pass. Adams obviously was running a deep dig. The Raiders called up the dagger concept, which is kind of interesting because we run that a ton. Drew it up, nice play. Derek Carr made the nice pass. So Derek Carr, in my opinion, generally speaking, had a pretty good game. I'll have to go back and watch the tape. He definitely had, I think, at least one or two passes that were bad. I kind of saw it on social media, but a lot of quarterbacks have one or two bad plays. I want to see the overall game from Carr, but more than that, I want to see the offensive line. I want to see the running game. It seemed like the Colts really wanted to stop the Raiders' run, and for the most part, they did. All right, Josh Jacobs only had 3.7 yards per attempt, and a third of his yards came on one carry, right? 22 yards of his 78 yards. I guess a little bit more, less than the third, but Josh Jacobs, man, 20 carries for 56 yards, right? Minus his long. So the Colts definitely came out wanting to stop Josh Jacobs, which makes sense. They got that cover 3 shell, so they're definitely going to put more people in the box. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Matt said, who's getting fired, Sanji? I don't know. I would be surprised if I would be surprised if Josh McDaniels does not finish as the Raiders head coach. I'd be very, very, very surprised. If Josh McDaniels somehow gets fired, it'd be news because I think the Raiders need to be consistent. They need to keep a consistent coach, a consistent general manager, consistent DC, right? Assuming the defensive coordinator is not absolute garbage, we got to be consistent. And we'll see if the Raiders can do that. It's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be very, very interesting. I don't think anyone gets fired. We'll obviously see what ends up happening. Shout out to Octavius Prescott. He says, "I can't believe we lost to a high school coach. We need to fire McDaniels now. We are never gonna win shit as long as Mark Davis owns this team. We just lost to Jeff Saturday. Jesus Christ, we suck." Um, it's unfortunate, man. It is what it is. Let's be honest. This game came down to the fact that our defense did not make the plays it needed to. On the Jonathan Taylor touchdown, Trayvon Merrick did not fill the gap. Their tight end comes on a wham block. Trayvon Merrick doesn't fill the gap. Jonathan Taylor takes it 66 yards for a touchdown. Taylor didn't have an absolute great game, right? He was on par with kind of, I mean, basically had the same stats that Josh Jacobs had, right? Minus his 66-yard touchdowns. The only difference between him and Josh Jacobs' game. Jacobs even had 6 catches for 30 yards, almost 30 yards. But that Trayvon Merrick not filling, and then on top of that, you don't pick up the fumble that Sam Webb forces, and that's the difference in this game. I know some people are going to say let's fire Josh McDaniels, but it's literally the difference of a player executing, right? And I think Devontae Adams talked about it, right? That the players aren't executing, the players aren't doing their jobs. And not saying that the fumble, someone should have picked that up, and that means someone wasn't doing their job right. Fumbles are kind of lucky, in my opinion. And the Raiders ended up just not picking up that one play, right? So it's going to be interesting what the Raiders end up doing. It sucks, man. It sucks losing. I know some people want to tank. I don't want to tank. I want to win football games, man. I want the Raiders to try to win and try to get as many wins as they can and try pushing for a playoffs. Obviously, at 2-7, you're not going to make the playoffs. Flat out, you're not going to make the playoffs. You can finish 10-7. I think that's what it would be. But there's no way the Raiders are going to win all 8 games. It's just not possible. We got the Chiefs, the Chargers, the 49ers, right? You got some good freaking teams coming up. I think we put the Patriots, maybe even the Bucks. Don't quote me on that. But the Raiders got some good teams coming up. A Raider Flex said, "Don't forget Foster dropping a touchdown." You can say it was a drop. I'd say the linebacker made a great play on the football. Of course, some players make that play, right? Maybe Darren Waller makes that play, right? And maybe Travis Kelce or Devontae. One of these great players makes that play. And Foster Moreau obviously isn't a great player yet. It is what it is. Kind of sucks, but I wouldn't say it was a drop necessarily. I think the linebacker just made a great play, but you can technically say it was a drop, right? Because a better player may have made that play. Viper Twitch says, "What? McDaniel's outcoached by a high school coach?" I don't think that's a big deal. I don't know why people make it into such a big. Jeff Saturday could be a good coach for all we know. Like an NFL owner hired him as the interim coach. He came from outside the organization. Like they fired their coach, and the Colts didn't say, "Hey, we're going to make Gus Bradley the interim or one of these other guys." They literally went out and got an outsider to be their interim head coach. It's kind of crazy. I don't know if it generally works like that or if it's ever worked like that, right? Kind of be interesting. Enzo Dago said Bryce Young. People are saying tank. You guys tell me, should the Raiders tank the rest of the season? We're 2-7. If we lose the rest of these games, the Raiders will get the second overall pick. And that's assuming the Texans don't win any of their games. There's a chance they could win, right? The Raiders could potentially, at this point, I think Bryce Young goes number 1. That's the quarterback that I would want. I think Bryce Young has the highest upside. I think his mechanics, his processing, the way he steps into the pocket, his awareness, all that stuff, I think is the best in this draft, especially kind of watching these guys. And if it's not Bryce Young, I don't know if and I'm not a quarterback evaluator, so I'll be the first to tell you guys I don't know, right? But with Bryce Young, he's the guy I'd want. And if it's not Bryce Young, I'm all for them taking a quarterback if they think it's going to work. But I wouldn't mind taking a guy like Jalen Carter, potentially trade a couple picks back, right? Drop back to 5 or 6 and see if you can still get him. If it's not him, there's going to be a defensive end that's going to go and climb up, right? It happens every year. There's going to be a Trayvon Walker this year, right? Maybe it's the guy from Georgia. Maybe it'll be a different guy that's, I think Clemson has one of those guys that have like the freak body type. They're going to jump up, right? And maybe Will Anderson falls a little bit. Maybe it's Jalen Carter. Maybe you get Brian Breesy from Clemson, right? I wouldn't be mad if the Raiders don't take a quarterback and we take a defensive guy, a difference maker, right? Not freaking Cleveland Farrell. I'm talking about an actual difference maker. Um, Raider Geo said pitchforks are out. That's how it feels like for me, man. I'm tired of this shit, man. I really, really am. Don't get me wrong. I didn't expect the Raiders to bounce back this season, but I am tired of always losing and always, it's like year in and year out. And the thing is if you have a good coach and a good regime, you'll always have success. I don't know if the Raiders have that. You know, not saying Josh McDaniels coaching and his offense can't work. That's not what I'm saying. But the creativity just isn't there with Josh McDaniels, right? You look at Mike McDaniel, you look at Matt LaFleur, and some of these other coaches. And I know and I know LaFleur is not having that same success right now. But these coaches, right? They just design things that are it doesn't have an old school feel to it. And Josh McDaniels is like that same, let's run the power, let's run these same three types of runs because we only run three types of runs, right? We run the ISO with the fullback on the linebacker, we run the crack toss, and then we run the power with the guard and tight end pulling into the thing. It's pretty simple stuff that the Raiders do, right? And again, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying let's fire McDaniels, but I'm not opposed to it either. It's just going to push us back, right? Because the next regime, and again, you got to think about all the different scenarios. Do you keep do you keep Dave Ziegler, or do you fire him too? Because then what about Chandler Jones and that contract? What if the next guy doesn't want Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow? Right? There's so much to think about that the Raiders have already done in just the last 8 months or however long it's been here. I don't know. It sucks, man. It really, really, really sucks. 58 couldn't field it. Yep, that's exactly what had happened. See some people saying Derek Carr sucks. I'm saying I see a lot of your guys' comments. I appreciate this. Always the best comment is when I find out, because it would suck if I'm up here talking. I'm gonna get into the super chats here in a second. It would suck if I've been talking for 17 minutes and here I find out that you guys can't even hear me. But if you guys can, over 500 of you guys here, just hit that thumbs up button. It really does help this channel grow. And we're gonna jump right into these super chats because I see a lot of them have been kind of coming in. Stephen Webb says the difference is players believe they're rich. They're not playing for McDaniel. Same talent or better, just not the leadership to inspire our talent. Here's and this is my honest opinion. I get that players played for Rich Bisaccia. I get that, right? And you're saying that people aren't inspired to play for Josh McDaniels, but every single one of our losses has been by one touchdown or less, right? Every single one of our losses. It's the difference, right? Like Sam Webb forced a fumble and we just weren't able to fall on the football. If the Raiders fall on the football today and in all the other losses, minus the Saints game, obviously, right? We're including that game. All the other games, the Raiders could have like 6 wins right now. We could be 7-2 or 6-3, right? And I get it. People are going to say, well, no one believes in Josh McDaniels. That's why these guys are flat. These guys aren't stupid, right? They know we're 2-6. We're not going to make the playoffs. So it may feel like people are kind of flat, right? And I know people are saying this team is better than last year's team. You can make the argument it is, right? But you can also make the argument it's not, right? You can make the argument it's not better than last year's team. And I say that because you look at the scheme we had last year, right? We had all these different defensive players that kind of came in. Plus, we had a lot of people that we kind of cut, right? Alex Leatherwood got cut. We got rid of some linebackers, some defensive linemen, right? And then you look at Jonathan Abram and Trayvon Mullen, right? It's almost like this regime is cleaning house, right? And I get it. We signed Devontae Adams, but does Devontae Adams, the one pickup, mean we've gotten better as a team? I don't know. Plus, a lot of our wins have been one touchdown or less. Last year, a lot of our losses this year have been one touchdown or less. Compared to last year, a lot of our wins were by one touchdown or less, right? So it's the flip of the coin. It's the flip of how the football lands. Does the ball land, or does the ball fumble or fall to the right or to the left? Do the Raiders make that play or do they not? That's been the difference this year, right? And you can almost say that we got lucky last year. And I don't want to use the word lucky, but it's the word that comes to mind, right? Last year we got luck on our side. This year we don't have that same luck. And I don't want to win based off of luck. I want the Raiders to be a talented football team that kicks people's ass, right? People come and play the Raiders and they're scared of this defense, or they're scared that this quarterback's going to absolutely crush us. Like, teams are scared of the Buffalo Bills. They're scared of Josh Allen. They're scared of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and his offense. All right, teams aren't scared of the Raiders. Like, their offense isn't scary. Their quarterback's not scary. Their defense is trash. There's nothing the Raiders really have, in my opinion, that you would look at and say, I don't want to play that team. Right. And the Raiders got to fix it. They absolutely have to figure it out. And it needs to come together. Juan says, I don't understand what Davis thinks he's getting in McDaniels. He's out coached by everyone, is clearly losing the locker room, can't make adjustments, and his offense continues to look awful. Here's the thing, right? And I hate talking about, absolutely hate talking about this, but how much is it that Josh McDaniels' offense sucks versus Derek Carr's not very good? All right, which one is it? Has Derek Carr regressed, or does Josh McDaniels' offense just suck that badly? Because if the Raiders were 7-2 right now and we won every game by a touchdown, we would say, oh yeah, this offense is legit. Josh McDaniels is legit. But the thing is we just haven't been able to win those one touchdown games. Instead, we lost every single one of those games. So everyone's saying Josh McDaniels sucks, right? Um, we'll see what ends up happening. We'll obviously see what ends up happening. I think the Raiders do need to consider, if you're going to fire McDaniels, you got to consider who's going to come in and take over, because there's not a lot of good coaches out there, right? It's not like every year there's a good coach that's just not that's just, ready to be hired. Talk and Chit said Merrick is not a linebacker. Not sure who suggested that, but Trayvon Merrick is way too small to be a linebacker. A lot of people saying the D sucks. Tanner Jack saying the D sucks. Trolling here a little bit. Juan says, go get Rodgers, LMAO. He is losing as much as us. It goes beyond the players. The coaching sucks. I mean, I think there's a difference between Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr, right? I do think the Packers defense is better than the Raiders, much better. But I think the thing with the Packers is, the Raiders went out and got the best wide receiver. The Packers gave him away, right? It's a big difference in the two. If the Packers kept Adams and the Raiders didn't get Adams, then, they would have way more. They would be having success. Not way more. I don't know, how much of a difference Adams would make. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is declining, right? That's naturally going to happen, right? But I definitely hear what you're saying. I definitely 100% agree with what you're saying. It sucks because if the Raiders wanted to go get a new coach, I would say let's go get Sean Payton. But Sean Payton's not just available. He's under contract with the Saints. The Saints have his rights. So if the Raiders wanted Sean Payton, we'd have to trade for him, basically, right? Or they would have to let him go. And I don't know if that's going to happen, right? We'll obviously see what happens. We got the first comment that I seen. Tony Fletcher said the offensive line is trash. What do you guys think? I don't think the O-line played that bad today. In fact, I think they did a pretty solid job today. Well, let me know what you guys think. Obviously, I haven't watched the tape yet, so we'll go back and we'll watch the tape. So someone said that I'm a car hater. I didn't see the comment, but Butters say Sanjeev ain't a car hater. Y'all just don't watch enough content. I'm definitely very critical of Derek Carr, but I'm definitely not a hater. I think someone who's a stan would call me a hater, right? That's different. Obviously, those people are, when Derek Carr's on another team, whenever that happens, they're the ones that are going to go follow that team, right? And they can leave right now. I care less about those people, but I have no issue with Derek Carr, man. If Derek Carr was a top 10 quarterback or top 5 quarterback, I would go 100% all in for him. But he's not that, right? Let's just be honest. He could have proven that this year. He hasn't, right? And maybe he proves that next year, because I don't think the Raiders are going to get rid of him. I actually posted a comment. I retweeted something. Some guy, I don't know who the hell this guy is, but he put it out there this morning that he has some sort of source or some sort of inside knowledge about how Derek Carr is going to get traded and the Raiders have already decided to move on. Just some bullshit ass comment. And I said that I've heard the opposite. And people are like, who told you the opposite, that Derek Carr is not going to get traded? It's not like Mark Davis called me, right? I talked to the players, right? The players are confident that Derek Carr is going to be here. And I believe when these players feel happy with Derek, if they feel like Derek Carr is not the issue, and it's not one guy, it's multiple guys. At that point, I'm gonna take that over some random account, right? But again, it's not like Mark Davis called me and said, "Hey, Sanji, we're gonna keep Derek Carr," right? Obviously, people are very gullible on Twitter and social media in general. Um, Natural High said Mark Davis just went to the locker room. Maybe Josh McDaniels gets fired. I'm at about 4 minutes and 22 seconds, so I'm definitely way behind. We're gonna catch up on some of these comments. We're gonna get a little bit closer because I'm like 12 minutes behind, which means Josh McDaniels could have already been fired, and I probably wouldn't even have known it. Shout out to you, Molly Mall. Always appreciate you, man. It's gotten really, really bad, man. Big shout out to you though. Trip. Derek Carr was bad in the first quarter. Sorry. He was bad in the first quarter. I'm not going to lie. The Raiders had 0 points in the first 17 or 18 minutes of the game. But from that point forward, Derek Carr played much better. And he at least kept us in the game. The defense didn't make the plays. And I get it. 25 points isn't that much, relatively speaking, right? An offense should be able to score more than 25 points. Winning teams score more than 25 points, let's be honest. That doesn't happen every week. It doesn't happen every game. But generally speaking, you should be able to score more than 25 points, especially against a team that has that had 3 wins coming into the game, right? It was crazy because the Colts are like getting right there. They're almost a playoff team, right? They're 4-5-1. So Stephen Webb said, "I'll take Foster over Waller for the salary discount and availability all day. Waller is a difference maker, but those only count on their play." That's a very solid, very solid comment. I don't disagree with you necessarily, right? But it feels up to me. I think a healthy Darren Waller has a bigger impact than a healthy Foster Moreau. I definitely understand the discount part of it. And I definitely understand the difference in terms of a guy being healthy versus a guy not being healthy. 100% agree with it. And I hear what you're saying. I still take Darren Waller because when Darren Waller is healthy and you pair that up with Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs, that's a hard trio of weapons. Like, those 3 guys are difference makers, right? Like Darren Waller, last year, Darren Waller, before we got Adams, Darren Waller was the guy, and he was going off different games, right? He was hurt, I think, last year too. But even the year before that, Darren Waller was doing a lot of big things, right? If Darren Waller's healthy, Darren Waller can put up the game Devontae Adams just put up. I think the Hunter Renfrow signing was a massive mistake. Massive mistake. And I said this when the signing actually happened, and I've repeated it multiple times. Anyone that follows this channel knows it. That I felt like this with Renfrow. Nothing against the guy. I like Renfrow as a guy. But $15 million for a wide receiver, he's a slot receiver, right? And really, the type of player he is not worth $15 million, right? You can find that type of production from other players. That too, you run the correct concepts, the correct routes. You can put in Matt Collins and have him run those routes, and you're going to get, generally speaking, the same production. $15 million should be a guy that can take a pass 50 yards for a touchdown. And the Raiders don't really have any of these guys. Other than Devontae Adams, no one's really making those type of plays for us. But Hunter Renfrow is not that guy that's going to make those plays. That's my personal opinion. You guys don't have to agree with me. But I definitely appreciate the comment because this is definitely a smart comment. If the Raiders wanted to move on from Waller, should have done it. Should have taken the second round pick that the Packers were apparently offering. Dale Callan, thank you for the super chat. Said McDaniels called a decent game. Carr played good when it mattered. Defense made plays in spurts. The O-line's lack of discipline killed us all game. The O-line, I think, had 3 penalties. The penalty and Andre James's 2 penalties. I know Jermaine Illuminor had a hold. I think that was a terrible call. Andre James had 2. He was downfield penalties. The major penalties were the holds. I think one, I can't think of who it was on. I think one was on Mac Hollins. It was a hold on Mac Hollins, and I think it was another hold because the holds take us back 10 yards. Those are drive-killing penalties. Losing 5 yards, you can overcome that. But I definitely agree with what you're saying. We had some bad penalties this game. We had 10 total penalties. Only 74 yards or 75 or something like that. Not a big deal, but they came in at the wrong time, right? Came at the wrong time. Ultimately, the Raiders were not able to overcome those penalties. So it's gonna be interesting, man. I'm gonna skip down a little bit, and I apologize if I missed any super chats. The comments definitely come by, and I definitely want to be, see things that are happening live. I wouldn't want Josh McDaniels to get fired and I miss it, and I talk about it like 15 minutes later. So, shout out to all you guys that are here. Um, Clisman, Michelle or Michael said Sanjit, this O line had flags left and right over it. Um, I'll have to go back and watch. I felt like there was only 3 penalties on the offense line, and maybe I'm wrong. But more than just the penalties, Derek Carr was kept clean for most of the game. All right. Derek Carr, even on his sacks, were coverage sacks, right? It wasn't like Dylan Parham just got absolutely smoked. We'll have to go back and watch the tape. We'll kind of evaluate from there. But I don't think the offensive line played that bad, right? Generally speaking, right? You got to look at it from the entire thing. I get penalties is one thing. Losing 5 yards because Andre James is downfield definitely hurts. But Derek Carr did drop back, I think, 42 times, somewhere around there. So definitely keep that in mind as well. Shout out to Alexander for the $5 super chat. Shout out to you, Robert said Sanjit is definitely high right now. Definitely not. Definitely not high, man. Definitely not high at the moment. Lorenzo said defense let a 37-year-old off a 39 yards, exactly 39 yards. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. It's crazy because right before that happened, it was 3rd down, I believe, too, and I said Andrew Billings is getting he's doing a good job pushing the pocket back. He's collapsing the pocket. He came out, and then Matt Ryan took off for 39 yards, which is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how you let that happen. And obviously the 39 yards screws the entire average. I guess they did a pretty good job. 6.9 yards per attempt by the Colts. It's pretty bad by the Raiders on the defensive side. Eye patch said tank for Will Anderson. I would not mind, man. I would not mind tanking for Will. I wouldn't mind taking for Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Bryce Young. I would not mind anything because whatever the Raiders do, it has to be better than the shit that we're seeing right now by the Raiders. Because it's pathetic, right? Like, let's just be honest. Watching this Raiders team, like, I'm pumped up. Every week when the Raiders come to play, I get excited, man. I'm pumped up. I'm fired up. I want to see these guys, right? But watching this Raiders team is just not inspiring. Like, I don't wake up on Sundays and say, damn, I'm excited to watch this team. Like, it's almost a hassle watching this team, right? But obviously, I still watch the entire game. You guys will never see me not watch the entirety of a Raiders game. I watched them when we used to win 3 or 4 games for the last 15 plus years. I still watch them every single game in and game out, right? But I hear what you're saying, right? Tank for Will Anderson. Talk Ken Till said Kyle Pitts. Oh my god. Kyle Pitts looks bad, but I see I patch and shield to tank for Will Anderson and trade Chandler Jones and Waller for Kyle Pitts and a pick. I would not be upset over that at all. Kyle Pitts is, the Falcons are absolutely terrible. They're wasting Kyle Pitts. They're wasting his rookie contract. I believe Kyle Pitts went before Jamar Chase. I'm sure someone can verify that really quickly. I believe Kyle Pitts was the 4th overall pick, and I believe Jamar Chase was the 5th overall pick. That's crazy to think, the difference in the impacts. And it almost seems like Travis Kelce and Andy Reid got all of these tight ends paid. George Kittle, Darren Waller, TJ Hawkinson just got drafted or traded, but I believe he got paid as well. Maybe he hasn't yet. So many other guys are just getting paid, right? But all of these other guys are just average players. Like, the 15th best wide receivers better than most of these tight ends, other than Travis Kelce's. Kelce's obviously clearly the best tight end. It's crazy. It's ridiculous, man. Kyle Pitts is being wasted by that, by him, by the Falcons, in my opinion. Yeah, man, I don't know. It's crazy to think that, like, coaching definitely has such a massive impact when you think about it. And I don't know if the Raiders have that right coach right now, right? Yeah, I don't know. Archer said, I don't blame Sanjit for sparking up a backwood after the game. This team, man. Well, I got to work first, right? So I got to get the content out, do that stuff, and then I'll chill and relax afterwards. So Manish said we were out coached. That's all. I appreciate the super chat. Omar said, Sanji, I used to get mad. Now I'm laughing. This is why we shouldn't have traded for Adams. Now we should trade everything, get picks. That's a good point, man. I'm pretty sure when Devontae Adams got traded, that was not very. I was happy. Don't get me wrong, right? You get the best wide receiver in the NFL. It definitely exciting. It's exciting, right? But I just feel like the Raiders need to fix their defense before they go all in on the offense. People have killed the Bears for what the Bears have done, right? The Bears traded away a lot of their assets, and they didn't sign any receivers this offseason. They have like $120 million next offseason. And they won't even get to spend all of that because there's just not enough players. But the Bears did it right. The Bears have a good young offensive line. They have a rookie left tackle, second year at right guard. Even their center is pretty solid. Their right tackles, I think, a second or third year guy. They built a good offensive line that has huge upside, right? They're one of the best run blocking offensive lines. Plus, now they got Justin Fields, who's in his second year. He's on a rookie contract for the first 5 years. They'll pick up his fifth-year option. And then on the defense side, they got some good young pieces. But this offseason, they're going to spend and they're going to go crazy trying to build that roster around Fields. But they're in a good spot, right? Because the Raiders don't have the cap. We don't have the draft picks. Like, we don't have enough to go all in because we're going to have to pick and choose because our core is our core, right? If they pick up Derek Carr's contract for next year, he's locked in for the next 3 years after that. Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, that's the core on the offensive side. We're not going to see something different. Obviously, the only swap you can really do is swap in Derek Carr. If you really wanted to, you can get out of his contract. But the core is the core, right? So I don't know. It's kind of uninspiring if you guys ask me right now, right? And the scheme's a part of it, right? The scheme's definitely a part of it. Next Gen said, I'm not convinced it's McDaniels. I would not, I would not say it's him either. Wait all day said draft Jalen Carter. I would be all for that, man. Natural High says Carr is crying on the podium. Is that fact? I know someone can say if that is fact or not. I doubt Derek Carr is actually crying up there. Deo said O-line was below average today, subpar run blocking and momentum killing penalties on 3 and out of our 7 big plays. Penalties been an issue for years, bro. Penalties have absolutely been an issue. It's crazy because the Raiders started that rebuild with the offensive line, and where we're at now, right? Like 3 or 4 years ago, we had Hudson and Jackson and Trent Brown, and before that, we had Kelechi Osemele at left guard and Donald Penn at left tackle, and we were absolute. Our offensive line was killer. In 2016, we had the best offensive line in the NFL. And that's come way downhill relative to where we're at today. What the Raiders need to do is they need to go hire Jeff Stoutland, the Eagles offensive line coach, or Bill Callahan, the Browns. And they need to pay him, either of those guys whatever the hell they want. If they want $20 million, Mark Davis needs to make it happen because those guys know how to coach offensive line. The Eagles will never be a bad football team, generally speaking, because they have a great offensive line. That's coaching. The Browns, great offensive line. That's coaching, right? The Raiders' offensive line coach sucks. Flat out sucks. Carmen Porcello is a terrible offensive line coach. Tom Cable is heads and shoulders above that guy. I've had Raiders offensive linemen flat out tell me that their offensive line coach sucks. The guy they hired sucks. The guy that they brought in sucks. And that's literally Raiders offensive linemen that have told me that, right? Which is kind of sad if you guys really think about it. Anthony Ruiz said, moderator, do I get paid for that? You hit me up, man. I got you, man. I'll definitely block some of these guys that are spamming, though. I definitely hit me up on Twitter. I got you, man. It was a bad game. It was a really bad game. That's crazy that some people are saying Derek Carr was crying at the podium. We'll have to look at it, and we'll definitely I might even just make another video right after this, just a quick 5-minute video talking about that. But I want to see it, man. I see a lot of people saying I feel bad for Carr. I'm a big Carr guy. I see a lot of people saying it that Derek Carr is crying at the podium. That's That's unfortunate, man. I don't know if, obviously he's bothered by losing, which is understandable. Um, he obviously puts his heart and soul into it. So I get it, right? And plus, I know a lot of people are right now are feeling like they don't like Derek Carr, but Derek Carr has given us 9 years. And there's been some solid years, in my opinion, right? Obviously, it just hasn't ever worked, and you can blame the ownership for not ever building a defense to make it a point to tell these coaches that, hey, we need to build the defense, right? And you can blame the ownership, right? You can say they failed Carr, but you can also say Derek Carr is not that good of a quarterback, and maybe the Raiders should have moved on sooner. Either way, man, um, it is what it is. I definitely still have respect for Derek Carr, right? Regardless. Brian Shoemaker said, read the super chats, homie, respect. Shout out to you, man. Darian said, D tackle, cornerback, linebacker, right tackle in that order. Absolutely, man. I would take a D tackle first. It's crazy because I've said this every year for the last like 3 years. Like, let's take this linebacker or D tackle or this D tackle or this guy. And we never do it. We never freaking do it. Yeah, I think the Raiders should take a D tackle, man. I get it, right? Derek Carr may not be the best quarterback, but if the Raiders get a rookie quarterback, that doesn't fix our defensive issues, right? We still got to fix the defense. Obviously, it does give us more cap space. It gives us more money. It allows the Raiders to have that much more money to potentially sign a D tackle, and I'm for that too, right? Like, if the Raiders want a good D tackle, go get Aaron Donald or DeForest Buckner or Quinnen Williams, right? Although Quinnen Williams is no longer going to be for sale because he's arguably the top 2 or 3 D tackle now. But Aaron Donald may be up for sale, right? Not up for sale. Like that's not the right words, but the Rams may start sucking here soon. They really may, because they went all in to win Super Bowls. And although they won last year, that's not the right way to build, in my opinion. And Aaron Donald's, if he loves the game of football and wants to continue playing, he may go elsewhere. It might not come to the Raiders. He can go to any team he wants. But maybe it's DeForest Buckner. Maybe it's, one of these other top tier D tackles. Yeah, Raiders got to figure it out on the defensive side for sure. Molly Mouse, Sanjit, he really broke down crying. Dang, shaking my head. I want to see it, man. That's unfortunate, man. Obviously, Derek Carr loves the Raiders, and obviously he's upset, right? It is what it is. I know people are going to make fun of it, especially on Twitter, social media. People are going to make fun of Derek Carr. I don't think that's cool at all. I'm still a Carr fan no matter what, even if I don't want him as our quarterback. I always put the Raiders first, but Derek Carr's still a Raider, right? He's still a Raider at heart. That's crazy. I want to see the video. Obviously, I'll go back after this and I'll check it out. Not underwater said, bro, Sanjit has been saying it. Get the fucking defense fix. We have to, man. We have to get the defense fixed. You can't spend $52 million on the defense, $115 million on the offense, and think the defense is gonna shut down teams. It's not gonna happen, right? So hopefully the Raiders get that figured out. Brian said, call the pass interference. Adams is too good to miss like that. I think that was a really good play. If they called pass interference, I'd be good with that. I would have said that's a pass interference. But since they didn't, I'm okay with that too. I think it was actually a really good play by Stephon Gilmore. Great players win football games, man. It is fact. Great players win football games. Devontae Adams made a massive 48-yard catch run for a touchdown. And Gilmore stepped up and made a play for his team. I will say this. Watching Sam Webb kind of fired me up. Watching Sam Webb punch a ball out in his first ever game where he actually got a lot of playing time. This week I'm going to do at least 2 film breakdowns. One will be on Luke Masterson. The other will likely be on Sam Webb. It'll probably be those 2 guys. Generally speaking, over the last couple of weeks, I've done a couple of different film breakdowns. I was busy last week, so I didn't get to the second one. But I appreciate the comment here. It's going to be interesting. This week's going to be very interesting to be able to watch some of the rookies. Byron, shout out to you, man. One of the best channels, in my opinion, on YouTube for Raiders. I said the 2022 Raiders need to be an episode of Unsolved Mysteries. Love your channel, brother. Shout out to you, man. That would be something, man. That definitely would be something. I see some people saying that the Cowboys lost. It doesn't impact me at all. I can care less if it's the Cowboys, Packers, the Bucks. I can care less, man. Yeah, man. I don't know. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, man. 44 minutes. I'm gonna go check out that Derek Carr presser. If you guys could hit that thumbs up button, I'd really, really, really appreciate it. People are saying they're sad about the Derek Carr presser. It's crazy to kind of think that, but I'm gonna go check it out, and I'm gonna make a video on that. So thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.